How you doing? I'm David Sanchezi, and I'm here to talk about the news of the day. And what I believe right now is a big topic that, shamefully, the media doesn't really get into and really try to find out who this guy is, and that's Ray Epps. Everybody's asking, it's trending on social media, who is Ray Epps? Well, there's very little we know about him other than the fact he was there the night before of the Capitol riots. He was there on the day of the Capitol riots, and he was telling people and trying to coerce people into going into the Capitol. That is without a doubt, that is on film, that is on camera, and you can see it for yourself. However, the so-called January 6th Commission that's trying to get to the bottom of all this so-called insurrection, where they never charged anyone with it until yesterday. 11 members from the Oath Keepers, a far-right group, according to the news, and Ray Epps used to be a part of the Oath Keepers. He was, in fact, the head of the Arizona chapter of the Oath Keepers, okay? So now we have all this stuff coming out about Ray Epps, about the January 6th committee, and how they knowingly go after President Trump, and they're trying to charge him with sedition, right? When all he did was say, let's peacefully assemble back at the Capitol and go there and let your voice be heard. But we know now that Ray Epps is on camera telling people to actually enter the Capitol the day of and the day before. So we have these two different things going on, and the January 6th Commission apparently doesn't want to deal with Ray Epps. They supposedly had one interview with him and just confirmed that he was not working for the FBI or wasn't an FBI agent, according to what I read. So the question begs to differ. What exactly was Ray Epps' role in this whole thing? It's clear that Ray Epps was involved more than they're letting you on. You have him basically controlling people on the front line, telling them to enter the Capitol or not to enter the Capitol. And where I think they got him is because if you start looking now, you have all the leftists protecting him. You have all the rhinos protecting him, saying all this stuff about him that he's not involved. You have all the liberal fact checkers now protecting Ray Epps. And you know when you have them when the fact checkers are suddenly calling you a conspiracy theorist. You know you have them when the rhinos are calling you a conspiracy theorist. You know you have them when the leftists are calling you conspiracy theorists. So that's what we have now. What we have is a guy we know now who I believe, from what I've seen, actually committed a crime, who hasn't been arrested. You have everyone who's investigating this calling you a conspiracy theorist for trying to point out that he committed a crime. So I'm going to read you this piece from the Revolver News, and we can kind of come to a conclusion to see what's going on here. I'm also going to show you some really interesting connections in this whole fiasco that's going on. Connections within the FBI that to me appear to be related to all this. Okay, meet Ray Epps, the Fed-protected provocateur who appears to have led the very first 1/6 attack on the U.S. Capitol. In a House hearing on Thursday, Representative Thomas Massey questioned AG Merrick Garland about a mysterious man, Ray Epps, instructing protesters to enter the U.S. Capitol building on January 5th and who later sheep-herded crowds towards the Capitol on the 6th. The story of the mystery man, Ray Epps, featured in Representative Massey's video above is, in fact, far more shocking than even the good congressman implies in a hearing. It's a story so strange and so scandalous at every turn that it threatens to shatter the entire official narrative of the Capitol breach and expose yet another dimension of proactive federal involvement in the so-called insurrection of January 6th. And when you do delve into that, you see how so many things have changed, evolved, the lies that they told about it. I remember when it first happened, they were saying how the rioters had killed one of the policemen. It turns out he really died of a heart attack. And our government is consistently caught in lie after lie. And that is the power of the social media now. See, before they used to say something, they always had the media to back them up. And most of us, or many of us, took it as fact. But now you have social media where immediately, like with Ray Epps, for instance, people in the crowd filming this guy and they see him on TV and they're like, oh, look at this film we have of him. So many of the lies that they say get debunked in real time. So it is the problem for the government that social media represents and why we have all this this censoring going on. But I'm gonna show you this video real quick. You can check it out. And this is the representative, the congressional representative.
The concern that there were agents of the government or assets of the government present on January 5th and January 6th during the protests. And I've got some pictures that I want to show you if the my staff could bring those to you.
Okay, if you don't know, that's Ray Epps out in the crowd the night before on the 5th, talking about how we need to go into the Capitol. Now, mind you, President Trump said we could peacefully assemble and they want to charge him with massive federal crimes. But here this guy's actually saying something, and the next day, as you'll see, he goes on and says the same thing the day when they did into the Capitol.
I can't see that at all.
Okay, if you don't know, that's again Ray Epps directing people. Where President Trump was speaking, he was speaking a little bit of ways from the Capitol. He's now directing people, saying, as soon as the president finishes, let's go to the Capitol. You see what I'm saying?
Is that a approved video? All right, you have those images there, and they're captioned. They were from January 5th and January 6th. As far as we can determine, the individual who was saying he'll probably go to jail, he'll probably be arrested, but but they need to go into the Capitol the next day, is then the next day directing people to the Capitol. And as far as we can find, this individual has not been charged with anything. You said this is one of the most sweeping investigations in history. Have you seen that video or those frames from that video?
So as I said at the outset, one of the norms of the Justice Department is to not comment on impending investigations, and particularly not to comment about particular scenes or particular individuals.
Okay, I was hoping today to give you an opportunity.
What is frustrating about this, if you watch or if you've seen the hearings thus far, these people, they never answer the question. The people in the FBI, the DOJ, if you saw the questioning by Ted Cruz the other day, this is how they answer everything. Oh, we can't comment. Oh, we don't know. Or no, like they just never answer the question. And there's the problem when you have no oversight, when there's no one watching these people. They do what they want. Unchecked power is one of the worst things you can have with law enforcement.
To put to rest the concerns that people have that there were federal agents or assets of the federal government present on January 5th and January 6th. Can you tell us, without talking about particular incidents or particular videos, how many agents or assets of the federal government were present on January 6th, whether they agitated to go into the Capitol, and if any of them did?
So I'm not going to violate this norm of rule of law. I'm not going to comment on an investigation that's ongoing.
That's just incredible to watch the guy sit there. Won't even deny the fact that they were involved in potential crimes. Say, no, we know that's not FBI protocol. We would never allow that. Like, he won't even say that. So to me, that's very telling. And I don't know what's going to happen from here because, again, like I said, the FBI, the DOJ has no oversight whatsoever. The Congress is supposed to be their oversight. Senators are supposed to be their oversight, yet they never answer questions. They take months to give back directives when they ask them questions. And it's a joke, honestly. Like I said, when I was in NYPD, we always had to answer to internal affairs. And there was none of this, oh, I can't answer that. It just didn't happen. And if you fail to answer, you got fired. That's it. So the way that the FBI, the DOJ has no current oversight has to be changed, because we have to get to the bottom of this. And honestly, even if it's not televised and we can't talk about certain things out of quote of national security, then the Congress, the Senate need to be able to get to the bottom of these things, because what they're doing right now is just ridiculous. All right, so now more on the revolver piece. There is good reason why AG Garland ran from Massey's questions faster than he could find words, and why he couldn't even keep eye contact as he was dodging Massey's gaze. After months of research, Revolver's investigative reporting team can now reveal that Ray Epps appears to be among the primary orchestrators of the very first breach of the Capitol's police barricades at 12:50 on January 6. Epps appears to have led the breach team that committed the very first illegal acts on the fateful day. What's more, Epps and his breach team did all their dirty work with 20 minutes still remaining in President Trump's National Mall speech, and with the vast majority of Trump supporters still 30 minutes away from the Capitol. What I do find upsetting about this is, if you look, there's people who were arrested on the outside of the Capitol who never entered the building because they supposedly were giving directives. Yet again, this guy, Ray Epps, nothing. Secondly, Revolver also determined and will prove below that the FBI stealthily removed Ray Epps from its Capitol Violence Most Wanted list on July 1st, just one day after Revolver exposed after Revolver exposed the inexplicable and puzzlesome FBI protection of known Epps associate and Oath Keeper leader Stuart Rhodes, who's now been arrested. July 1st was also just one day after separate New York Times report amplified a glaring falsifiable about Epps' role in the events of January 6th. And here goes some more. Lastly, Ray Epps appears to have worked alongside several individuals, many of them suspiciously unindicted, to carry out a breach of the police barricades that induced a subsequent flood of unsuspecting MAGA protesters to unwittingly trespass on Capitol restricted grounds and place themselves in legal jeopardy. Okay, so when I read this, former law enforcement, it's two things. Either he was working with the government and committing crimes, of which is criminal entrapment. He was entrapping people, which is a crime. You cannot lead people or coerce them into committing crimes, or he's a cooperating witness, which means they did arrest him perhaps, or they went and they got him and he just started to cooperate and rolled over on everybody, which it doesn't seem logical to me, because if he was doing that, I believe even some of the other people that were with him would have been arrested. And again, they say numerous unindicted co-conspirators. So I find it really odd that no one else was arrested, because not everybody would jump on the bandwagon and cooperate like Ray Epps maybe, or again, they were all paid informants or confidential informants of the FBI who were put there to help set up and get Trump supporters to enter the building and make this narrative that we now have today. And to me, that seems more and more likely as you start to see more and more of the stuff coming out. So I'm going to go over to the second piece now, done by Revolver, and they continue the story now, and they talk more about more information they've gotten since the last time they wrote this. 6 weeks ago, Revolver News published a blockbuster investigative report. That's the one I just read, on Ray Epps, a man who, more than any other individual, appears to be the key to unlocking the question of active federal involvement in the so-called Capitol siege on January 6th. Out of all of the thousands of January 6th protesters and the thousands of hours of public available footage from that fateful day, Ray Epps has turned out to be perhaps the only person nailed dead to rights, confessing on camera to plotting pre-planned Capitol on the attack. And I do find that wording, it's really on point, because if you look at all the other people who were arrested, we're just taking the words of the feds pretty much, unless you have those people like the guy with the sheep stuff on, and a few other people that you may have seen on camera. This guy is all over camera inciting crimes to enter the Capitol, and again, nothing is done. On both January 5th and January 6th, Epps announced multiple times at multiple locations his upcoming plot to breach the U.S. Capitol. He then spent hours attempting to recruit hundreds of others to join him. On top of it all, Epps was seen leading key people and managing key aspects of the initial breach of the Capitol grounds himself. Watch.
Tomorrow, we need to go into the Capitol. Into the Capitol. What? No! Peacefully. Fed.
So there you have all the violent Trump supporters, as he's trying to coerce them into going into the Capitol the next day, they're saying, no. Isn't that odd? Even calling him a Fed.
I don't even like to say it because I'll be arrested. Well, let's not say it. We need to go. I'll say it. All right. We need to go in.
To me, this guy's a terrible actor. Look, he's going all over the place, talking to people, trying to get the whole crowd riled up. It's pretty obvious this guy is either a straight up insider or he's working for somebody.
To the Capitol.
Look at the Trump supporters. They're laughing at him.
I didn't see that coming. Okay.
Monument Hill.
We are going to the Capitol.
Again, inciting people, trying to get them to go to the Capitol.
It's that corruption. Please spread the word.
All right, no, Dave, but one more thing.
Yeah, so can we go up there? No?
When we go in,
Are we going to get arrested if we go up there?
you don't need to get
You're going to
shot.
arrest us all?
See, when I hear this is just my law enforcement experience. He's telling people, let's go in. You'll need to get shot. Leave your flags behind. It's like he's trying to create a scene that could become newsworthy, but yet trying to keep the violence mitigated to a little bit amount, if you understand what I'm saying. Like, it's almost like they were trying to get this situation to occur, but trying to minimize the violence so not that many people get hurt, especially them, if this was a setup by people within the government. And that's what it looks like to me, because if he is an insurrectionist, like they say, or he's doing this, he really wants to go in there full force and get people to go violent, but he's also trying to minimize the violence, if you get what I'm saying, so they could create a big story like they did. And as you see, people went in there, didn't even go in there with any violent intentions, yet they're getting 2-3 years sentences, and all they did was go in there and sit down, go into people's offices, take pictures. You have people walking around there taking like family photos. It's pretty crazy. And that to me is what they wanted. In a way, it seems like it was all created to make it bigger than it was. And that appears to be what happened. If you didn't catch that there, I'm sorry. He starts to whisper into one of the guy's ears that's in the front, and shortly after, they all start pushing. Okay, one of the things that I talked about was I was there on the 6th, okay? And I remember, and I talk about it, I'm going to put my video from when I was there at the Capitol on the 6th about how I saw it. Everything just seemed like a setup. And this was me later that night talking about how suddenly all these guys just showed up, and they didn't look like regular Trump supporters, because that day when you saw the people who were there, it was mostly families, older people, and all of a sudden all these young guys just showed up. They were wearing all these pads, and they were trying to coerce people to go in. And I'm looking at them like, I'm not going to the Capitol. I'm not crazy. And there was also people screaming at them saying, Antifa, Antifa. I don't know if it was Antifa, but they were definitely well organized. They were telling people to go like flank to the left because the cops are moving. It was like a well orchestrated thing that you might see from a group like Antifa. And I'm going to put that video, and I want you to check it out, because this was like the same day that it all happened, that I couldn't believe this was going on. And here is where I agree with Revolver's story. It would be one thing if Epps' repeated calls on January 5th to go into the Capitol had simply amounted to bluster, which would be, of course, freedom of speech. But Epps followed through on his stated mission to sheep-herd others inside. In clips 4 to 6 of the above compilation, we see Epps actively orchestrate elements of the very first breach of the Capitol barricades at 12:50, while Trump still had 20 minutes left on his rally speech. It is noteworthy that Ray Epps' breach occurs just 1 minute after Capitol Police began responding to reports of 2 bike bombs located at DNC and GOP headquarters, respectively. Rather conveniently, the already handicapped police thus had still fewer resources with which to respond. This is the interesting part right here. I remember clearly, and I talked about it. The crowd was calm right before a lot of these people showed up. And all of a sudden the police were shooting concussion grenades at the crowd. And I was like, why are they doing this? What's like, nothing's really happening. And all that started to evolve after, as you'll see if you watch the video. While the pipe bomb turned out to be a dud, Ray Epps' breach proved faithful. Today, the official story was told by the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, and the U.S. Justice Department. All depict the apparent Ray Epps orchestrated 12:50 p.m. initial breach of metal barricades as the Big Bang event of January 6. In large part, this description is hardly an exaggeration. Indeed, it was the 12:50 p.m. breach of the Capitol grounds in conjunction with a handful of suspicious individuals ripping down fencing and signage that set motion the conditions allowing for 1-6 to turn from a rally into a riot. In this report, we will blow open the network of still unindicted key operators who appear to have been at work with or around Ray Epps during the initial Capitol grounds breach. As we explained in detail in our previous report, the FBI originally put Ray Epps' face on its Capitol Violence Most Wanted list on January 8th, just 2 days after 1-6. That was pretty quick. So it appears that he may have been working with them, or he automatically became a snitch. They offered a cash reward for information leading to his arrest, or when they did that, people who were involved in the deep state suddenly notified FBI personnel this guy was working for us. In fact, rank and file FBI agents initially deemed Epps' role as an apparent riot organizer so important they named him suspect number 16, one of the first 20 high-profile FBI targets in a database now packed with more than 500 suspects. You see what I'm saying? It was so obvious this guy was involved that within 2 days, the FBI had all of the information on him, and then they just pulled him off. So it's way more than the media wants to investigate this or let know. There's way more than the 1-6 commission is telling us. They're hiding stuff. It's pretty apparent here. Then 6 months later, on June 20, 2021, both Revolver News and the New York Times published inconvenient stories that encourage more aggressive interrogation of the Ray Epps third rail, leading reasonable people to wonder why this publicly identified man on the most wanted list still had no files charged against him. The FBI responded to these important media stories the very next day, but their responses were to quietly purge all online Epps files from their website, then switch to a posture of what? Who? Ray Epps, never heard of him. Agents of the FBI field office in Phoenix, where Epps lives, have gone so far as to explicitly deny knowledge. I'm going to show you now how the FBI, the guy who's running the Washington field office, was involved with the Whitmer case. This is the interesting thing. So you have a similar case with the Whitmer case where all these people were involved, and it seems like the FBI staged the whole thing and got them to do something that they really weren't planning on doing. And it's very similar to this, what they did to the other Trump supporters. So what you have here basically is a government going after its people to control the narrative and to have their own set of crimes set up to arrest, indict people, and make it look like it was an attack of the government, just like they did with Whitmer. Here goes a quick representation of what happened. On July 8, 2021, July 1st, 2021, FBI makes from January 8th, 2021, July 1st, 2021. Ray Epps, a top suspect on the most wanted list. Multiple calls for public help to identify him. Cash reward offer for more information leading to arrest. Public local newspapers ID Epps. Then on July 1st, suddenly deleted Epps from database after press exposure. No arrest and no explanation given. U.S. Attorney General refuses to answer the question. FBI agents in Phoenix, Arizona deny all knowledge of Epps exist. So they deny they exist. They have a picture of him here, and right here he's removed. And again, this is more like a deep state operation where the guys at the bottom are doing this investigation, and they spot this guy and they're looking for him. All of a sudden they get the calls from the higher ups. Listen, squash this. That's what it appears like to me. Again, now, was it because he was working for them or because he became a government snitch? You decide on that one. The sham congressional January 6th commission seems to be going along with all the charade of Ray Epps' denialism. for all its recent. All right, this is where we get into the things where they're denying they know him. But I want to show you, this is when you know you have him, because we all know how the government feels about these so-called right-wing groups. They call them all white supremacists. The media attacks them. The rhinos, attack them. But yet now we have rhinos, we have the media, and the fact checkers, the biggest ones of all, denying everything about Ray Epps. And I'm going to show you this on Snoops. Right? These people hate Trump supporters. And here we go. Who is Ray Epps? And this is where you always hear it. The conspirator claimed that the attack on the U.S. Capitol was a false flag conducted by federal agents, hinges largely on the identity of one man. On January 5th, 2021, day before a mob of outgoing U.S. President Donald Trump supporters stormed the U.S. Capitol and delayed the certification of then President-elect Joe Biden's electoral victory, a man was filmed encouraging people to go peacefully into the Capitol the following day. The video didn't make much noise at the time, but in the ensuing weeks and months, this person, who many identify as Ray Epps, became a central figure in a conspiracy theory. Just like everything, whenever you got them, they try to diminish what you know by calling you a conspiracy theory. How many times have they said things that they called us conspiracy theories because we came out with truth? We can go on and on. The lab leak theory, the election, so many other things that they try to say where conspiracy theory is, because they will never refute the facts. They will never sit there and talk about, well, this, because they got to create the narrative, and they just try to diminish you because all the lunatics who want to believe the media will then throw you in the same thing. Who's one of the biggest conspiracy theories of them all? Alex Jones. And I'm not a fan of Alex Jones. I really don't follow him much. But if you look at so much of the stuff that Alex Jones said years ago, it's come to fruition. He's always been a big-time conspiracy theorist, according to the left, according to the government, and according to people who report the so-called news. The attack on the Capitol involved hundreds of Trump supporters who have become enraged by the false claim that the 2020 election was marred by widespread fraud. And there you go. We already know where Snoop stands on this. This fact that the crowd was composed of Trump supporters is evidenced by photographs, videos, news reports, thousands of first-hand social media reports, and testimonies from the rioters themselves. Snoops is the same people that said that the George Floyd riots weren't riots, so that tells you about them. Still, some social media users, cable news hosts, and sitting members of Congress have maintained or speculated that the riot was purposefully sparked by federal agents in order to frame Trump supporters. Epps, they claim, was one of the government agents involved in staging the attacks. So, who is Ray Epps? Is he a federal agent? And is there any evidence to support these claims? Epps is the owner of the Naughty Barn, a wedding and event venue in Queen Creek, Arizona, according to the Daily Mail. The 60-year-old man is also a retired U.S. Marine. Epps is also a Trump supporter and appears to have long-running ties to the Oath Keepers, a far-right anti-government militia that formed shortly after the election of President Barack Obama in 2008. Epps was listed as the president of the Arizona chapter of the Oath Keepers. Was Epps at the... Here goes where they try to say he's not involved. They have this video of him right here. It's pretty funny. They're pretty much trying to debunk it just based on this one video. We all saw the video where Ray Epps is encouraging people, right? So from this video alone, from the available footage, they take this one video. It appears that Epps was in attendance at the rally, but that he did not go into the Capitol or engage in any violence. One video actually shows Epps as he attempts to de-escalate a fight between police and protesters. So they're basing it on this because he didn't go in. We also know that there's people who didn't go in who were arrested. We know there's people who didn't engage in violence that were arrested. So this is what they're trying to say. Watch this video here, and this is why they're trying to say he's not involved.
I would have came locked and loaded if I knew this was happening.
Take a step back. Take a step back. We're holding ground. We're not trying to get people hurt. They don't want to get hurt. You don't want to get hurt. Just back up.
No, they don't.
Not a preschool age boy. Hey, it doesn't matter. We made a point. You don't want to take away from what we did.
Hey, where were you guys? Where were you guys?
We fought for you.
So there you have it. They're trying to debunk the whole Ray Epps conspiracy, as they call it, just because they show a video of him telling protesters not to get violent. But again, there was people who didn't get violent that were arrested. There's people who went into the Capitol who did nothing and were arrested. They were actually let in by police and were arrested. But here, this guy clearly is inciting people to go in, and he's just disappeared off the face of the earth. And if you talk about him, you're a conspiracy theorist, just like everything else they try to say you are a conspiracy theorist for. Again, now here goes an article, of course, by NBC News. I'm just going to read the title really. January 6th committee dismisses Ray Epps conspiracy theory issue and gives new subpoenas. The House panel said Ray Epps, who was seen trying to egg on protesters ahead of January 6th riot, told he was not a federal agent. I'm going to just read this little part right here. The House committee investigating the attack on the U.S. Capitol sought to dismiss a right-wing conspiracy theory by announcing Tuesday that Ray Epps, who was seen trying to egg on protesters ahead of the January 6th riot, told committee members in an interview that he was not a federal agent. Okay, he was not a federal agent. But if he was a federal confidential informant, it still doesn't prevent him from being charged if he is committing entrapment and trying to get people to commit crimes. And here's when you see right here, when you have the fake news, NBC, you have the fact checkers, Snoops, and then you have the rhino Republicans, the people I can't stand the most, all working together in conjunction to try to get a narrative going. Here you go. Watch.
The January 6th committee, and I know you're always very hesitant to get in front of the chair and the vice chair, so I'll get that caveat out of the way. If you got no more information submitted to this committee right now, how much of the story do you think you have?
I think a significant part. I think where we're at right now, we know a lot of the narrative. And as I've said, I think the most important thing is not even the day of January 6th. It's what led to it. We have a lot of what's out there in the public venue, what the president himself said. The fact that he was watching for 3 hours on TV, probably gleefully while this happened. So I think if everything shut down today, we'd be able to put out a powerful and substantive narrative. We still have more information, obviously, we want to get.
All right, but let me try to give me one thing you don't have yet that you really think you need. You know, a witness or that you really, or you need to understand that would make this a stronger report.
You know, I think the one thing that if I could wave a magic wand and have more information on, it would certainly be what did the president know about January 6th leading up to January 6th. And I think what's important is it's the difference between was the president absolutely incompetent or a coward on the 6th when he didn't do anything, or did he know what was coming? And I think that's the difference between incompetence with your oath and possibly criminal. That's where I want to get more information. We do have obviously some things leading up to that, but the more information we can get, obviously, the better.
Okay, I want to read you this one part of exactly what criminal entrapment would be and why Ray Epps and why they're so desperate to crush him and just change the narrative on him. It is difficult for a defendant to beat a drug charge based on entrapment, and it's not enough to show that the informant initiated the transaction. The reason why I believe they so badly want to discredit the Ray Epps theory is because it could cause all these cases to get thrown out and then show that the government was involved. And here's the reason why. To succeed on an entrapment defense, a defendant must show that the criminal design originated in the mind of law enforcement officials or any person acting under their direction. See, Ray Epps acting under direction. And the defendant was lured or induced to commit a crime that the defendant had not otherwise intended to commit. Got that? So in other words, people who were there, the people who were waved in by the police, the people who entered the Capitol, didn't go there with the intent to commit that crime. Instead, they were induced by someone working for the government. You see, and that's where Ray Epps would fall in. And that's why they have to do everything within their power to discredit him. That's why they have the rhinos working on it. The libs, of course. You have the media and, of course, the fact checkers, because they're all working together to prevent a big travesty that the government would see and been able to indict or lock up all these Trump supporters. And that's their goal. Now I'm going to show you two things. Similar problems with the FBI that's been happening with all the Trump supporters, with President Trump himself, right? This is one of the problems they have right now with the Whitmer case. FBI agent in the Governor Whitmer kidnapping case posted anti-Trump rant to Facebook. One of the lead FBI agents who worked in the Governor Whitmer kidnapping plot case, who recently pleaded guilty to a criminal case of his own, apparently engaged in a profane anti-Trump tirade on Facebook months before the alleged kidnapping plot. FBI agent and now convicted wife beater December 20th, Richard Trash, was one of the lead agents associated with purported Governor Whitmer kidnapping plot of October 2020. So you have one of the head guys that's involved in this whole case against Whitmer that hates Trump, hates supporters, and involved in doing a mass arrest to take down supposedly Trump supporters that were going after the governor. Now, here's where it gets kind of crazy that probably many of you didn't know. And it seems to be all these people at the upper echelon, the FBI, all hate Trump and his supporters, okay? Here you have the head of the Detroit faction where this happened against Whitmer, Stephen M. Dionato, named assistant director in charge of the Washington field office. So here you have a guy right here who was in charge of the Whitmer plot, right? Allegedly to frame Trump supporters, who was then transferred to the Washington field office right before this happened. Right here, look, Director Christopher Wray has named Stephen M. Dionato as the assistant director in charge of the Washington field office. Most recently, Mr. Dionato, or Dionato, served as special agent in the Detroit field office. So this guy went from Governor Whitmer's plot, right, all the way to Washington, D.C. and involved in another Trump plot. Bingo. Again, we see this time and time again. The upper echelon of the Washington FBI hates Trump, and they bring another guy in who so-called was involved in something similar to the plot against Whitmer, now involved in the Washington fiasco, where we have all this stuff happening, and they're trying to hide informants just like they did in Detroit against Whitmer, and it's just the same thing. Interesting connection, huh? Anyway, I just wanted to get into that. This video went a lot longer than I wanted it to, but I just want to show you this is a big connection here to me. This is very telling about how they do things in Washington, D.C. They have the certain people that work for the deep state, and they bring them in when they need special operations done, similar to like when you're in law enforcement. If they have someone who's an expert in doing something, they'll bring them to tackle a big case. And to me, this is what I believe happened. Anyway, thanks for watching. God bless America. God bless all of you. Talk to you soon.